participants in this afternoon programs, students of the university. I have been rather overwhelmed by the hospitality of the university and words of Dr. Tripathi. So, what I would do, I would rush through some of the points in the presentation and then concentrate on some of the other matters concerning interaction with the state and particularly with the criminal justice machinery of the state, because this is where human rights activists, common people have a strong grievance that state machinery doesn't care for the human rights of the common citizen and particularly for the poor and the downtrodden citizens. Yes, first one I have mentioned about, first is the definition. So meaning of good governance, this was covered in our discussion in the introductory session, so I am not going into it in details except mentioning that good governance is a good governance which puts people at the center of the government. It has to be pro-people. Whatever criteria, this, that, it should be accessible, transparent, loyal, but the people's interests have to be predominantly kept in view. So that is what they call pro-people. And I have also mentioned that the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which says that to ensure dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation, they coexist and are not incompatible. Kindly understand, preamble mentions that Constitution will try to ensure the dignity of the individual and the integrity of the nation. So very often it says that yes, in the interest of security, in the interest of law and order, sometimes individual rights have to be curtailed. Yes, sometimes some curtailment of individual rights under certain circumstances may be necessary. But by and large, in the name of integrity and safety of the nation, you cannot compromise with the dignity of the individual. That is one of the essential points of the Indian Constitution, particularly highlighted in the preamble of the Constitution. Then comes the question of definition of human rights. This has already been covered and discussed, and as I mentioned that human dignity is the quintessence of human rights. You must have, unless you have respect for your dignity, you can't observe human rights. And these are the rights which belong to individual by virtue of being a member of the human family, irrespective of any other considerations. So that issue is there. But now comes the question, what is the third? Definition of human rights under the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, Section 2D. And this is important, and I'm sure later on you can ask questions on this. Human rights means the rights relating to life, liberty, equality and dignity of the individual, guaranteed by the Constitution, embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by courts in India. So, some of the rights regarding liberty, equality, dignity, right to equality, right to dignity, guaranteed by the Constitution, and also other various acts which have been passed. As a result, the rights are enforceable by courts in India. That's the point. But on this, it has been a wider interpretation of human rights has been given. We will refer to that. So kindly remember this description, that These are rights to liberty, dignity of the individual guaranteed by the Constitution. As I mentioned, some of the constitutional rights are the basic human rights. And enunciated in international covenants, to which reference has been given in the first session of our discussion, and enforceable by courts in India. Then comes the next. This point has also been discussed in the first session, that it is not a Western imposition, and I referred to a book of the UNESCO, The Birthright of Man. It illustrates the concept of human rights in different cultural traditions and explains how it is not exclusively Western in origin. Do you know that book mentions the concept of human rights you find in Hindu culture, in Islam, divinity in man, not only in Indian thought, in the religion of the Jews. So don't say that it is only the West which is teaching us. They say that human rights is the birthright of man. It is present in other cultures also, and how it is not exclusively Western in origin. Then the question of next, the human dignity, and Charles North's view, which I mentioned. Then I mentioned about Indian tradition of human rights, saying of Mahatma Gandhi and Swami Vivekananda. Mahatma Gandhi I mentioned it there, but Swami Vivekananda said in many places that the highest form of worship of God is helping the man. If you help the man, that is the best form of worship of God, because according to him there is a divinity in every man, and by respecting man, respecting his dignity, you are paying homage to God. That's a new concept of Vedanta, where he said that human beings are the children of immortal bliss. There is God in all of them. So you have to respect human beings, human dignity, and that's the best form of worship of God. Next. Then, of course, this you know, how the UN Charter came, Universal Declaration of Human Rights came because of this, after the Second World War, where the Holocaust was there, large masses of people were killed by the Germans, and after that it was felt that it was necessary to build up the United Nations in order to ensure that human dignity is not trampled under feet. I'm rushing through it for the simple reason these are the things you know, I need not. Because I'll come back and there we can have more discussion about human rights and how it interacts, and how the state agencies are observing human rights and what can be done about it. Mr. Sinha has already mentioned that how UN Charter in a number of articles refers to human rights, and I mentioned Article 55 of the Charter, which mentions that it will promote universal respect for observance of human rights and fundamental freedom for all without distinction as to race, language, religion. That's it. Next, Indian Constitution, as that also I mentioned, that how Universal Declaration of Human Rights, some of the articles there find mention in the Indian Constitution, and it, at the time our Vice President, famous philosopher Radhakrishnan said, it's a pledge to our people and pact with the civilized world. After all, observance of human rights, respect for human dignity is the hallmark of civilization. We belong to a civilized democratic country, is to be judged by our respect for human rights and determination to guarantee human rights. He says it's a pledge to our people and pact with the civilized world. And now this is the point where, next point is, this is because that is related to many of the points which we'll figure now. That is, Article 21 of the expansive interpretation of Article 21 of the Supreme Court, decision of the apex court in Maneka Gandhi's case. This is something very important because from this interpretation of the Supreme Court, many other issues of human rights, many other things which are considered as human rights have followed. As you know, Article 21 says that none shall be deprived of life and liberty except according to the procedure established by law. Initially, the makers of the Constitution, that discussion going on, they wanted that to have what is there in American Constitution, due process of law. So one of the experts, and that is another issue, reason, you know, some of the experts of the Constituent Assembly, B.N. Rao, Shiva Rao, they were also advising the United Nations when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was being framed. So when he had gone, they say if you ask the due process of law, then all courts will ask various things, whether opportunities were given, this process of law was observed, these precautions were taken. So you can lay down the procedure established by law. Procedure established by law is that, yes, suppose he is to be arrested. Notice is given 24 hours. If there is no provision that he is to be produced before the court within 24 hours, he has to be kept in police custody. Procedure established by law, that is what they kept. So if the legislature, your Goa legislature decides that, yes, from tomorrow onwards, the girl students will have to put on veil before entering the campus of the university, is a procedure. Law lays down, so you have to follow. That was the earlier interpretation. So there was a famous case of A.K. Gopalan's case, where the Supreme Court held that yes, if the court decides that if the law lays down, the legislature, the people lay down certain procedures, this has to be followed. And the example the court said that if it decides that Justice S.R. Das said that the cook of the Bishop of Rochester is to be boiled in oil. Is to be boiled in oil, Parliament has said. Nothing can be done about it. It is a procedure established by law. Now, Supreme Court says that that was the old interpretation of Article 21 by the Supreme Court, but more expansive interpretation from human rights perception was given in Maneka Gandhi's case by Justice Bhagavati. He says no. Procedure must be reasonable procedure. It must be fair. Otherwise it's not so. If the procedure is totally unfair, it is unacceptable. So procedure established by law, that now the court can question that this is the procedure we have laid down. If he set down that he has to appear before the police in 12 hours or within at once, whatever procedure, court can examine whether the procedure is fair and correct, fair and just. And also they introduced that the principle of locus standi, that is, previously it was that the person who is aggrieved, he alone can file a writ petition before the court seeking redress. Now the interpretation was no. Poor people cannot come to the court and ask for redress. The other organizations, social service organizations, they can take up the people. So the man he need not have to stand before the court and say that these are the rights which have been violated. This can be taken up by other social organizations acting on behalf of the people. And third, epistolary jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. That means it's no longer you have to file an affidavit. Even on a postcard, Supreme Court can take action. And you know some of the memorable judgments on the prison administration, Prem Shankar Shukla's case regarding handcuffing, all this has come on a written petition, on a postcard was sent, the Supreme Court took notice of it. That is called the epistolary jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So these are some remarkable development because large number of cases will come where Supreme Court says or the courts have said it has to be Life means life with dignity. Life is not an animal existence. Today all this environmental protection, all the question of climate changes, these are coming that yes, human life is a life with dignity. You have the right. For example, later on, I'm sure those questions will come later. Indian Penal Code does not define torture. There are certain provisions, Acts 364, 65, that if the police, in order to extract information, beat up somebody, that's a punishable offense and all. But no definition of torture as such. But Supreme Court now says that freedom from torture is a constitutional right because it's a violation of life with dignity. Speedy trial is a constitutional right because life with dignity is not possible, proper, except according to life with honor is not possible. So, very wide interpretation Supreme Court has given, and much of the human rights issues today have emanated from that expansive definition of Article 21 by the Supreme Court. This is, by the way, I mentioned. And now, next, Article 359, I'll refer to that later because that issue will come later. But remember that Articles 20 and 21 are made non-derogable. That means, during emergency, fundamental rights were suspended. The court said that most of the fundamental rights, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of movement were all restricted and you don't have. It is an exceptional situation, that was the interpretation. So when the Janata government came into power, that is the 44th Amendment of the Constitution, they say the Article 20 and 21, the right to life and liberty, and the man has to be produced before the magistrate court within 24 hours. He cannot be charged twice for the same offense. Article 20 and 21, these are non-derogable. Even during emergency, you cannot suspend them. So these are important developments in the field of human rights where in the name of emergency, certain fundamental rights were suspended. That cannot be repeated. And there also came from 51A, that is certain fundamental duties. We speak of rights only, but for the first time the Constitution says certain fundamental duties. And rights and duties are correlative terms. Yes, respect for women, respect for the international law. These are the fundamental duty to respect for the international norms, respect for dignity. So these are some of the 51A fundamental duties. In that connection, I will refer to the famous saying of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi used to say that, yes, and mark these words, I learned from my wise but illiterate mother, that rights without duties are just not valid. You can't enjoy rights without duties. This is something not worth fighting for. And we said you can protect those who argue for fundamental rights also have to, human rights have also to remember that human rights or fundamental rights can be protected if citizens also perform the duties. They must go side by side. So 51A mentions certain fundamental duties of the citizens, and this part of the Constitution, most of the people do not repeat that. Citizens have also certain fundamental duties to perform, which is not being done. Now the question is that, next, this democracy and human rights, that point has also been discussed in the introductory session, how they are supportive of each other, because democracy provides better public participation, legitimacy of government, strengthen their capacity to function effectively. So, some of you certainly may have read Amartya Sen's book, Argumentative Indian. That's a collection of essays. There Amartya Sen says that After all, democracy has taken roots in India, not because the British had gifted democracy to us. There are many other British colonies from where democracy has disappeared. India has, because we had the tradition of old village councils, people used to argument, press their point of view. So that is an old tradition which has remained. And he says that the democratic tradition has been there in India for a long time in the form of local councils. Then next, other points which have also been discussed there, human rights have a transformative potential, how it helps disadvantaged communities. Then comes the question of Asian perspective. Asian perspective is that this also briefly touched upon, that there are some fundamental human rights whose violation will be condemned by, yes, you may say that human rights, what is human rights for in the West cannot be the human rights in India. China said that yes, we have certain other family norms. Our society does not think that these are right to education and all for the children, etc. This depends upon the head of the family. But there are certain fundamental human rights whose violation will be condemned by all major cultures of the world. Abuses like torture, rape, racism are not tolerated. You see, that is where human rights we have mentioned have a universality, in a sense that rape, torture, while taking away of liberty of the individuals. Any culture would condemn it. It's no question of difference of culture and say that yes, this is permitted in our culture. No culture would permit ethnic cleansing. No culture would permit torture in prisons. So that kind of thing is there, Asianic. Now this is where I'll refer to, and this discussion now I will enter. That is some of the important initiatives of NHRC, human rights and governance. One biggest challenge before human rights, when we started also National Human Rights Commission 1993, large number of custodial deaths took place, custodial deaths and rapes. So NHRC issued an instruction that whenever custodial death or rape takes place, information has to be sent to the National Human Rights Commission within 24 hours. If you don't send that, it will be presumed that you have something to hide. So custodial death does not mean only death in police custody, it also means death in judicial custody. Judicial custody means prison. And it was found that large number of custodial deaths on an average, and I think Mr. Shiromani will bear me out, on an average 160 to 170 deaths in police custody and almost more than 1,000 deaths in jail custody. The death in police custody do not always mean that they have all been beaten to death by the police. There are some cases of disease also, but large number of cases there are torture in police custody or callousness in treatment, but large number of cases in death in jail custody were because of disease, ailment, poor conditions. Highest number of deaths take place due to tuberculosis. And each commission said in one case that tuberculosis is a preventable disease. If the prisoner dies of tuberculosis, it is a failure of the prison authorities. Some compensation has to be paid to him. So custodial death is a big problem. Some cases, we are called for reports, and whenever we are satisfied, at least we used to do, National Human Rights Commission used to send our investigators there to check up why it had happened. And some cases we found that yes, there was total misuse of authority by the police. We asked that action has to be taken against the police officers and compensation has to be paid. You know, there is a provision in the Human Rights Act that suppose the commissions, you must be knowing that National Human Rights Commission make recommendations. They can't give orders. If commission is a recommendatory, but by and large, Commission's recommendations are accepted by the government or the authorities concerned. So suppose the Commission's recommendations are not honored, Commission can go to the court for issuing order to the government concerned. I remember one case, there was a rape of a woman in police custody in Tamil Nadu. I had sent my officer, he came back, made an inquiry, and Commission ordered that 10 lakhs of rupees, 5 lakhs of rupees compensation has to be given. Chief Minister took a stand, Jayalalitha's Chief Minister took a stand that is what you have found. Unless and until it is accepted that the guilt is proved in the court of law, why should the state pay compensation? Not compensation, actually Commission called it interim relief. So it was pointed out it's a case of interim relief. Prima facie a case has been made out, and respect for human rights demands some compensation is given to the victim. But if you don't agree with us, we have no other alternative but to go to the Supreme Court. If state, who will go with get it challenged by the Supreme Court, go to the Supreme Court, she immediately agreed, paid the compensation. Similarly, in another case, that was a case in Orissa. Number of deaths of tribal children took place because they suffered from meningitis. And in one block, almost 130 or 40 deaths took place. So when we asked for a report, state government reported yes, but there was no medicine at that time in primary health center, they could not be treated. So it was pointed out that it is a responsibility of the state and right to life to help arrange proper medicine of the people. And if you are not there, you have to pay compensation. 25,000 rupees to be paid to each family. The Commission in relief has to be given to each family. Orissa government objected that if you do like this, so many deaths will take place. Every time we'll have to pay the relief. Where do we stand? So we made it clear we'll have to go to the court then. But they agreed and paid. So what I mean to say, that today right to life has acquired a wider dimension, and particularly in the case of custodial deaths, we have found that large number of cases, deaths take place, number one, due to negligence, number two, due to misuse of force, and sometimes due to natural causes. When we started, we found that, and we used to keep records, that some of the states it was more, some of the states it was less. And at that time, surprisingly, it was found in West Bengal, a communist-ruled state, that custodial death was one of the highest. The Chief Minister wrote a letter to the, Chairman wrote a letter to the Chief Minister Jyoti Basu pointing out it's a matter of regret that this kind of thing is happening in West Bengal. Jyoti Basu felt very bad, but assured that we just gave some excuses, but just after that it came down. Now it must be varying from state to state, but some monitoring is being done, some cases action is being taken, and more is to be done. The point which Michael raised, that after all, National Human Rights Commission cannot ensure protection of human rights all over the country. That's why we press for State Human Rights Commission. The some of the issues should be taken up by State Human Rights Commission to see that this kind of misuse of authority to the detriment of the citizens is not done. Then comes the question that at that time there was initial stage, the TADA was there, Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Act. There were lots of protests that it has been misused, grossly misused, and many cases it was used against smugglers, criminals, not terrorists. So we asked for that, the National Human Rights Commission asked for that it should not be renewed. And later on Parliament did not renew it. He actually Commission took the extraordinary step of writing not only to the Prime Minister but all the MPs and say that it is violative of Indian traditions, it is grossly being misused, and it should not be renewed, and it was not renewed. But then comes this point, and this point can later on come up also. I still remember I was in my room, British Home Secretary had come. He came to the Human Rights Commission to meet the chairman and all. Somehow he thought that it is worth meeting the Director General. He said, and we are quite happy that we asked for non-renewal of TADA, it has not been renewed. So he said, yes, TADA has been scrapped, well and good, because it was being misused, it was counterproductive. But I tell you, Mr. Sen, you require a strong act to deal with the terrorists. Otherwise, you will not be able to cope with it. This is an issue which is again coming up, which is coming up again and again. Some political parties say strong act is necessary. Others say that existing rules are good enough. Some say it has been misused against the community, against particular communities. So all said and done, terrorism constitutes one of the great violations of human rights, and possibly some legally also strong acts are necessary to deal with them. That was his view and perhaps my view also. Then comes the question of police reforms. And this is an issue where, since the NGOs are there, I'll put it in a little more details. See, large number today in Human Rights Commission, almost 70% or if all more than that, Mr. Ceremony will tell me, are complaints against the police, either for false case, custodial violence, abuse, beating up, torture, all kinds of allegations come. So it was felt that yes, Commission also felt that to take action against some aberrant officers or to provide relief, that alone is not good enough. This is a band-aid to the cancer. It is a systemic defect, something has to be thought of. You may not know, as early as 1860, Torture Commission said that prisoners are routinely tortured in police station, in Madras Presidency police station. And 1994 in Human Rights Commission also we found that torture is going on. So it was felt that something is wrong with the system itself. And then it suggested that National Police Commission went into the question of police and felt that one of the biggest problem today leading to misuse of authority, police corruption and mismanagement is that the police have become totally beholden to the ruling party. It has become the ruling party's police and not the people's police. It has to be insulated from extraneous pressures and influence. Unless and until you give autonomy to the police, you cannot expect police to behave correctly and in accordance and protect the rights of the people. Number two, that these are the issues which call for discussion. It said that yes, today the Chief of the Police, the Director General of Police, holds his office at the pleasure of the Chief Minister. Chief Minister does not like him, within 24 hours he can kick him out. Every police stations and all with the drop of the hat they are posting now, and the politicians are transferring officers, making money and making them totally subservient to the politician. So they say that some kind of a fixed tenure for the head of the police, and now Supreme Court has ordered for other important functionaries. And number three, that police autonomy should be matched by accountability. Police also must be accountable. There should be district complaints authority, state complaints against the police, it should be accepted. And you know, National Police Commission, this is normally Human Rights Commission do not, and that's the beauty of the National Human Rights Commission. that it implemented itself. There was a case, one senior police officer had gone to the Supreme Court in a case, Mr. Prakash Singh, where he said that if you want proper law and order, proper law enforcement, and try to implement the recommendations of the National Police Commission. And the National Human Rights Commission also implemented itself and said, yes, we support this. That Supreme Court, this case, think of police reform, otherwise only taking action and punishing some police officers and saying the police are all bad does not help. Police is a necessary evil, but some reforms are called for. And you'll be happy to know now the Supreme Court has issued some directions at long last, where it has asked for certain institutional mechanisms, that each state will have a security commission, where the chief minister will, in the security commission there should be a leader of opposition also. The chief minister alone cannot decide upon the police policies. The officers have a fixed tenure. Even the officer in charge, if you are to transfer, if something wrong he has done is all right, but drop of the hat you cannot. Directed important executive officers cannot be transferred. There should be an accountability commission. All instruction have been issued. So this is a culmination of most of the state governments are not willing to do so. They are dragging their feet by giving various excuses because they think that police will no longer be available to further their own partisan ends. Number of excuses are being given. The matter is before the court. But what I mean to say that National Human Rights Commission took an active interest and played an effective role by pointing out that what is needed is not action against some individual officers, that is necessary. But more important is systemic reforms. Without that, things will not change. Then of course, I am sure Mr. Shiramani will also cover that prison reforms. This is another area of great human rights concern. Fellows are in jails and you do not know outside world does not know what is happening. Their human rights are constantly violated. Any one of you visiting the prisons will find, I do not know the Goa, but many of the cases, these are overcrowded, absolutely unsanitary conditions, large number of people dying of tuberculosis, and food is very poor food is given, very bad food is given. So these are what they called living hells. Prison is meant for reforming the prisoner so that he can come back and become useful members of the community. No reform takes place, there is contamination of crime. And what is more, those NGOs and others who talk of prison reforms forget this thing, that in India, where is he, how much time is for me? I must, sir, how much time you give me, I'll ration it accordingly. Huh? Can I continue? Another 10 minutes? I'll do so. 15 minutes, all right. So, because I want to then finish it and ask some questions from you. I'm sure that's more interesting than what I am dilating. Because, so on prison reforms, we felt that, people do not know that the total number of prisoners in India is small. Total prisoners in India is something like 3 lakhs or little more than 3,20,000. In a country with 1 billion people, 3 lakhs of prisoners is nothing. Is per 1 lakh, it should be 13 or 14 prisoners. In America, with their 350 million people, prison population is 1.7 million. Russia, China, is all, prison population is 10 times or 13 times more than that of India. So, our prison population is more. But the curse is different. Large number of prisoners are under trials. Prison is meant for convicts, but our 70% prisoners are all under trials, and they are kept with the convicts and they get criminalized in the process. That is the crux of the Indian prison problem. And National Human Rights Commission also took up a number of issues with the different, and for this the court, a large responsibility goes to the courts. They are not able to dispose of the cases. Cases are pending. Man who has committed a small theft could have been sentenced to imprisonment for 2 months. He is in jail for 2 years. His case is not being taken up. That kind of thing is happening. And recently there was a case that he was a life imprisonment, 14 years imprisonment, but he remained in jail for 50 years. Nobody took it up. So that all kinds of cases are there. But what I mean to say that Commission took a lot of initiatives, and we wanted this old prison act in the place of old prison act, a new prison act that has not come. But prison reforms is another important area where attention has to be given. Most commissions representatives visit the prisons. State human rights commissions also take interest, but time has come where we have to take important steps to reduce the number of under trial prisoners. Without that, significant prison reform is not possible. Then torture convention, this is something, this is a convention of 1984, initially which prohibits torture, lays down that the victim of torture has to be given compensation. India signed, that's also Human Rights Commission exerted a lot of pressure and influence. It's signed the Convention of Torture but has not yet ratified it. This is a demand, must be there. Human Rights Commission, not only that, NGOs, civil society must press that India today remains along with Sudan, Somalia, North Korea in the great company, that which has not ratified the Convention Against Torture. Most of the civilized countries have done. Here we are not have done it because, number one, your domestic law has to be changed. As I mentioned, there is no definition of torture in the Indian Penal Code. There should be provision for compensation to the victims of torture, action against those who are inflicting torture. So this should be a big demand, effort that throughout the country, that Convention Against Torture should be ratified and domestic legislation should be changed adequately. Then another issue, which is also of human rights training in police training institutions, on that we have been doing it, but compulsory primary education, Article 45 says that compulsory primary education up to 14 years, within 10 years there should be compulsory primary education of Constitution. And we have found that most of the evils of child labor, child sex tourism, child marriage, all mostly come from lack of education. Wherever more educated children is there, it's far less. So most of them emanate from our unfreedom of illiteracy, which you mentioned. So this is where another effort should be. Now they are making it has become a fundamental right to education. But because of resources, we are not giving attention, but this requires much more attention than anything else. Compulsory primary education. And most of the states have done. Forget Western countries, even in South Asia, most of the states are much ahead of India in literacy. Even Burma, military rule Burma, South Korea, Thailand, they are much ahead in the field of literacy, where the literacy is almost 80%, and most of the states have compulsory primary education. China is ahead of India in one respect greatly because they have provided compulsory maximum primary education to the children. Their health and education, they have invested much more, and today they are reaping greater benefit. Then other points, I'll not go into. There are other points regarding terrorism and human rights on which there is a lot of discussion. I'll not go into details that what is terrorism, then what is the Security Council resolution, but one point is that terrorism is bad, but state terrorism can be worse. Answer to terrorism is not state terrorism. State cannot emulate the tactics of the terrorists, and violation of human rights by the state forces will encourage greater violence and is not the way of dealing with human rights. And I mentioned in the preamble that security of the unity and integrity of the nation as well as dignity of the individual, there you can't forget. So, and even resolution also says, National Human Rights Commission has also emphasized that yes, you have to fight with the terrorists, but according to the rules of law and not what the terrorists do. But now the question on which I would raise is some of the points. Other points I would invite questions from you, but two things, 2-3 quotations are there, which I want to say because that may interest you. This is I like this, that's because I've kept it. The best tribute we can pay to the victims of terrorism and the grieving families is to ensure that justice and not revenge is served. We want justice and not some fake encounters, kill them and show that yes, they have been eliminated. So justice and not revenge is served. That is the best way to ensure that we can pay to the victims of terrorism. Second is the Kofi Annan statement. The genocide begins with the killing of one man, not for what he has done, but because who he is. Genocide because yes, he is a Jew. He is a Christian in Kandahar. So genocide begins with the killing of one man, not for what he has done, but because what he is. A campaign of ethnic cleansing begins with one neighbor turning on another. Poverty begins when even one child is denied his or her fundamental right to education. What begins as a failure to uphold the dignity of one life often ends as a calamity for the entire nation. So dignity of one life, if you fail to uphold, sometimes it became a calamity for the nation. Achha, next chaliye. वो छोड़िए. Then last is the quotation, the well-known quotation, and that's my favorite quotation of Einstein. Yes. The existence and validity of human rights are not written in the stars. Those ideals and convictions which resulted from historical experience have been readily accepted in theory by man and at all times have been trampled by the same people under the pressure of that animal instinct. A large part of history is therefore replete with the struggle for those human rights, an eternal struggle in which a final victory can never be won, but to tire in that struggle would mean the ruin of society. That is where human rights struggle has to continue. Final victory can never be won, but to tire in that struggle would mean the ruin of human society, the civil society. So, ladies and gentlemen, briefly I have raised some of the broader issues of human rights, but more dealing with the state. What kind of violations of human rights are perpetrated by state agencies, torture by police, prison, mismanagement in prison, torture in prisons. I have highlighted the need for police reforms and terrorism also. I have mentioned that as to how for fighting the terrorists we can't give a go-by to the rules of law. That will be doing what the terrorists want us to do. And to remember that for human rights we have to carry on the struggle for human rights. There will be violations in many places, but unless and until we are able to raise our voice, it will be triumph of the evil forces, which we should not do. So I'd like to hear some questions from you. That is more important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sen, for this fascinating survey of human rights and the inherent dignity of the individual, that should be the core. Now the floor is open for question and answers. Students, participants, guests, I want you to make best use of this opportunity because it's very rare that we get a resource person of such a caliber. So feel free to question any aspect of human rights that he talked about.
It was a very scholarly and presentable lecture. You have nicely mentioned about custodial death and rape cases, where you have mentioned about the poor treatment, then police torture, then misuse of authority, then negligence of duty. See, considering all these problems, the question comes about the role of National Human Rights Commission or State Human Rights Commission. Then, what about the responsibility of the state machineries and judiciary? Because these are also very important instruments. Thank you.
Number one, that National Human Rights Commission, State Human Rights Commission should take action whenever this kind of reports, complaints come to them. But complaints are so many. Sometimes with the limited resources, they are not able to respond properly. Of course, for individuals, he can always go to the court. But unfortunately, our present criminal justice system moves with a snail's pace. If you go to the court, it will take long years in courts of law. That's why a large number of people want to come to the Human Rights Commission. But you can get quick justice. And quick justice always does not mean, this is the point, quick justice always does not mean that you have to, you see, quick justice means, after all, we are a democratic society, you have to start a criminal case against a police officer. Prove case against a police officer in a court of law is very difficult. He will gain over the witnesses. It takes place within the precincts of a police station. Evidence is not available. And as a result, we are not able to always, whatever cases, they are go on pending. And now, many cases, the state ministers, authorities support the police, that after all they are doing their work. One chief minister I know, I am not mentioning the name, he said, we'll protect you, don't bother for the Human Rights Commission. So at initial stage I had gone, he said, sir, chief minister is telling, DG says that he is telling the SPs that we'll protect you, why do you bother and all. But we have to take action against, I'll mention cases and come to you. It takes a little long time, but the message goes home. Now, there was a case in Bihar. I remember that was in 1995. This gentleman, Mr. Dhawan, he had a big shop in Ranchi. At the time of puja, he had gone to purchase clothes, sarees for his shop and coming back from Benares. Before he entered Ranchi, some police officer searched his vehicle, stopped his vehicle and asked him to pay 1 lakh of rupees. He says, I don't have. Well, you are a rich man, you don't have, and shot him dead and his driver from a point blank range. And then said that this has been done by the terrorists. So report came. I had to go and find out that this is all bunkum. Others, with some inquiry, some of the policemen were there, they said, sir, this is what really has happened. So I told DG of police, you start case against him. Of course. And he also said that what can I do? This, you know the background, because you must know, the background of this fellow, this inspector. He was previously a dacoit. He worked for the chief minister in some place and all, they put him, and forced us to join him as an SI or ASI, and now he has become an inspector. So we got him convicted, got him charge sheeted. But a lot of influence, Patna, the case will not come up. So I got a letter written by and what I mean to say, not that what I have done, that is unimportant. What I mean to say, the problems involved. We got a letter written by the chairman to the Chief Justice of India to see that this case is expedited. So possibly pressure came from there. and this man was convicted and for the first time in the history of India sentenced to death. And I, as a police officer, felt very happy that this is the man, this should be the punishment he deserves. Of course, it was later on commuted to life imprisonment, but the message went through. But many cases, it is becoming difficult. Best thing is to, within the, there is no mechanism better than the internal mechanism. Within the police also, there is a mechanism. Senior officers must quickly take action. Somehow people have the feeling that senior officers will do nothing, but that's not wholly true, partly true. Some cases quicker action can be taken. But what is more important, which I have seen in Canada and other places, alternate dispute resolution, in a sense that you call both the parties and ask them to settle down. What has happened? I remember one case, a gentleman came and said that the police station in Delhi, he verbally abused him and slapped him. So I called the officer and I said, apologize before him and give a letter of apology. He did so, the man is happy. He says, sir, wo to maafi maang liya, aur kya chahega? So we have to think of many other ways. Normal way that State Human Rights Commission, of course, I agree, State Human Rights Commission, there you have a point. National Human Rights Commission also must take prompter action. If after 3 years giving a complaint, which is happening, the complainant hears that it was inquired, nothing could be found, what he knows? Has he gotten a satisfaction? So that is what I am asking now, the National Human Rights Commission, State Human Rights Commission also, like what is done in, I have seen in UK or in A, that some kind of the complainants review what the complainants feel about it. And if the 90% of complainants say that we are totally dissatisfied with the way the commission is functioning, the message should go home. So there I have seen that that kind of thing is called for, self-appraisal. Commission should be more effective, I agree, though they have done a good job, but you can't rest on your laurels, you have to do. Number 2, cases should be promptly disposed of. The way judicial delay, and to say that our number of judges is limited, we cannot do, is unacceptable. And number 3, citizens have to be, and this is a point, we have to have citizens oversight bodies, which is there in many of the advanced countries, that they also must inquire into the matter and ask for action. They should have a say, the citizens oversight bodies over police misconduct. Actually, I am writing a book on this subject, police oversight. What can be done by the citizens oversight bodies? So number of steps are called for, and I agree that present pessimism with the Human Rights Commission is partly justified.
So my question is this. Now the human rights, most of the cases are against the state. Means we want the state to uphold the human rights. In the modern era, especially in India, with the growth of privatization, more and more sectors, employees are gone in a private sector. The role of the government we are trying to reduce. We have reduced almost in every sector because we have privatized. Now, what National Human Rights Commission is doing in maintaining the dignity of human rights in private sector. Like, for example, I'll give. Recently, what has happened because of this world recession, Jet Airways have retrenched almost 700 to 800 of their employees. It's not, okay, one may can say that, okay, they have to go to labor tribunal or this labor laws. But what about their human right? What about the stress on their families, stress on their kids, stress on their wives, their surroundings, their status? See, is there human right has done any study to involve Human Rights Commission in this type of private affairs? Means giving dictates to private parties to uphold human rights? Like especially the private sectors are not giving importance to pregnancy rights, only the government is doing. But government is still the negligible. workers in government sector is still negligible. The more working class we find in a private sector. What's the role of human rights in this area?
I can quote from the Act that Protection of Human Rights Act specifically deals with the violation of human rights by the government servants and prevention of violation of human rights. So it is basically violation by the government authority. It does not extend to, as the Act itself, it does not extend to private bodies. You have to modify the Act or amend the Act to see that this kind of violations by other agencies also are taken. But then it will be such a wide day. There are other agencies, Labour Tribunal, etc. to look into this. We are not able to do into the violation of human rights by the state, and now add to all violations by private rights and all. We will not be able to cope with it. So I actually quote the provision, except that, what we can do. Prevention of violation by the government service. Basically, that Act section is 13, I think. Just I'll quote that section. That basically it deals with violation of human rights by the government and the agencies, and just a second. What are the functions of the commission? 12A1. Present to victim on behalf of the direction order, violation of human rights or abatement thereof, negligence in the prevention of such violation by public servant. It is confined to public servant. But this issue is becoming important. Today, yes, private sector is coming and you see a lot of abuses going on. And as they say, if power corrupts, greed erupts. So a lot of greed also is there. So that, but Act does not permit it at present. We have to think of amendment of the Act and whether it will be at all feasible to take such a huge role and not able to comply with it. Already it is found that we are not able to meet the expectations of the people. And if you make the mandate much bigger, whether it will serve the purpose. But the point is well taken.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one or two things on what Jatin said, if I can add, sir, with your permission. It's not a question, but I thought I would make it a little more, when he spoke of
Madam,
human
you
rights,
address me.
Yes, sir. Human rights violations on what he was talking and approaching the NHRC. I would put it in a form of an example like this, that somewhere about 15 days ago, many of you must have read the paper that a worker from GKB, there was a theft. And GKB is your ophthalmics. There was a theft. The valuation very clearly which was given of the theft was 2,000. Just to show you how human rights is 2,000 rupees. The person was taken in on Friday, and well, obviously we were told if you're going to move the bail for 2,000 rupees, you're not going to get it. Very clearly the message was sent. On Friday evening he was taken in. Saturday was a court holiday. So your judges are not available. You can't go for a 2,000 rupees bail to somebody's house. And Sunday morning, I happened to move the bail because it came to my notice and I said, bullshit, you can go even at 12 o'clock in the night to the judge's house, So I said, give it to me. I went to this thing and I asked, where is the judge who's on? You're supposed to be having a judge on remand at any part of the day if it is a holiday. There was no judge available. I said, I'm waiting here. I told the police constable who was there, please bring the judge. He says, we'll go to the house, Gadi aad ani ami veta. I said, no, Gadi aad. She's supposed to be on duty until 12 o'clock in the morning. She came at 5 to 12. And investigations, she just put their remark, investigations not over, remand extended to 14 days. So, and now, I'm just explaining to you a situation. This is somebody who's finished an LLB, just appointed 3 months back as a judge. you have a senior appearing before you and no thought of anything or any kind of this thing, just putting it as a not, she has not even read the remand. On Monday morning, I moved the bail application in the court again, you know. I was kept waiting right up till 5:30 in the evening, and I'm a person with a very heavy schedule, but I was determined to get it through. Till 5:30 in the evening, she does not take up the bail application, okay? And at 5:30, and I'm sitting right in front there from morning till 1 o'clock. Court is adjourned for lunch, 2 o'clock, 5:30. The bail application is not even sent from up to down from the office. At 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the evening, she says, we'll keep it for say of the police. So I said, I'm very sorry. I will see that this bail is granted by 6 o'clock in the evening by the High Court. It's a question of 2,000 rupees, and which the person says. And with a lot of exchange of words, finally the bail was granted for 10,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees bail bond. So I asked her, I said, I thought this would be on a personal bond, first of all, because he's a Goan, he's working in the company, and so many more other reasons which we know. And even for rape and murder, sometimes people don't get 10,000 as the bail bond. If you're not satisfied, you can just go and appeal, you know. Now, what I'm trying to express is this is not an isolated case. We face this almost every day. People like Jatin and myself, who it is like somebody comes to you for help, or you see a violation, you're sitting in the court, and it takes up a lot of time of yours. And there is no remedial, you really don't have a remedy, because all you're told in simple words, if you're not satisfied with my order, just go to the next court, you know. So when it comes to actual violations of what Jatin was asking, the difference between, government and private this thing, I think if you really look at, one desires that human rights should cover every aspect which is there. But very unfortunately, even when we are looking at the consumer rights movements, you'll see that all the consumer groups are targeting BSNL. Till today, I have not met one consumer group who's targeting Airtel or Tata Teleservices or Idea, or I have not met any one group. You take any of the cases, everybody wants to target the government. We'll talk of, because it's very, 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 very easy to win a case with the government, because all the public prosecutors and the assistant public prosecutors, they have no defense. We know it as defense, sorry. This is again is a problem of human rights, because when you're saying the population of prisoners is so low in India, it is not because the crimes are low. It is because the conviction rate is so low because of the quality of our public prosecutors and poor investigations. I mean, I would like to continue, but anyway, thank you. I wanted to just, it gets frustrating sometimes, sir.
No.
The desire is there, the mechanisms are there, but when you actually come to ground reality and the battle of it all, it tires you at the end of the day.
No, I will start from the later ones and then go forward. First is the poor quality of prosecutors, which is a fact. That most of the prosecutors have picked up on political considerations. Many of them are incompetent. As a result, our cases are suffering. You do not know, before the amendment of 1973, police were prosecuting the cases. He was not even a lawyer. I was a ASP, used to go to the court. Our inspector used to get better conviction than the present APPs and all. So they decided to have separate prosecution wing, because police cannot work, investigation, prosecution must be different. As a result, today we have made a mess of it. That is one part. Number two is the delay in the disposal of cases and this kind of irresponsibility by the judges, particularly at a. That, of course, is a problem. Of course, you can go for appeal, but also, I think if it is a habitual with this lady and all whomsoever, you can lodge a complaint with the district judge and tell him that this is how she is behaving and this is the way she is disposed, and if the bar association takes up, it will have some effect. Fortunately, unlike government, they are totally under the control of the senior judges, so they can wield some discipline. And third part of it, which is that this arrest, 2,000 rupees, for number one, arrest is not necessary, number one. And this famous judgment of Justice Venkatachalaya, in that case, where he says that where NHRC's instruction is also there. What is that case? The Justice Venkatachalaya's case, apart from D.K. Basu's case, that's the name of the case anyhow. There it spells out that the very power, police have the power to arrest in a cognizable case, but there should be reasons behind it, otherwise this can be questioned. And you can certainly take it up with the question that this is done motivated, malicious. It was not called, he is working there. This arrest was not necessary, and even if it is arrest was that, he should have been released immediately on personal bond. This has been done with a malified intention, you can take it up.
I'm Marshall Pereira,
Yes, sir.
a retired businessman. I just want to put up a question is that I had seen on the TV news narcotic tests, and there were a lot of comments that it is a torture like. Torture, is it a torture according to human rights?
See, narco-analysis rule is that it has to be approved by the court. Number one, it's not valid as it's not a decisive evidence. But whatever police is doing, they are taking the permission of the court. If you take the permission of the court, it's not a torture. With the court's approval, you have done it. But whether it should be done at all, and that is another issue. At present, court is permitting, and then alone police are going for the narco test. See, I agree. Sometimes it's felt that human rights violation and all, it's a borderline case. If court feels that it's a criminal and this kind of test will help the cause of investigation, I don't think that is a serious human rights violation. I don't think. But there are many others who have human rights jurists who have felt it is a human rights violation. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a businessman. I just wanted to know whether these matters could be taken up under the Human Rights Commission. We have these typical mining problems in our mining areas, where people are literally dying of tuberculosis and chest diseases, because the trucks that are plying on those roads are plying day and night. There's tremendous amount of dust pollution, and these people, the poorest of poor, even can't shift from their houses over there. There have been many cases where people have appealed to the mine owners, to other people, to the panchayats. But in the meantime, this process goes on and people are literally dying. Doctors have given certificates to that effect, because they can't move out from there. Their children are in that dusty situation there, which is leading to disease. That is one. The other is lots of people are displaced from their place of residence from the time of the ancestors, like small farmers. For example, when Mopa Airport will come up, 7-8 villages will be totally displaced. They possibly will be given some compensation for their land. Considering the price of land everywhere in Goa now, they are literally put on the streets. Because those who are having a small piece of land, a small farm on which they survive, are now given a certain amount of money which has exactly no value, and they are put out, instead of being given possibly a similar piece of land where they can survive. We are talking about human survival. Can these matters be taken up under the policy and action of the human rights?
Yes, environmental violation. This is a violation of human rights, violation of the right to life and dignity. So this can be taken up, and the Human Rights Commission has done some cases, ousties it has done. For example, big cyclone, large number of people are displaced in Odisha. Human Rights Commission sent its representative to go there, see that what kind of damages can be given, and this kind of thing where environment is being polluted, it's a violation of human rights and can definitely be referred to the Human Rights Commission. And second, this displacement and all where poultry compensation is given. Later on, Mr. Shiramani will tell you, recently in Shingur, Human Rights Commission sent a team where the same thing, they were given some compensation which was inadequate, land was forcibly acquired. Human Rights Commission sent a team and must have sent its recommendation also. So they do constitute violation of human rights and come within the purview of the Human Rights Commission, because the effect is not an individual case, it affects a large group of people, and where the health of the community is threatened and they face environmental hazards, they come within the purview of the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah, so just a recommendation from your commission possibly could help that not just a monetary compensation, but a compensation of equivalent amount of land to especially a farmer or some, a baseline farmer, so that he can survive on the skills that he has, because that money will not help him buy a similar amount
Quite
of
right.
land
See,
or give him the same facilities that are possibly there.
The present, the land acquisition is governed by the old Land Acquisition Act long ago, where the state decides a compensation, acquires the land for this purpose. Now the new act is on the anvil of the parliament. It's where it should be appropriate compensation, suitable land. But as per the same problem which has come in Singur, they are saying that we have acquired the land on the present law does not allow, if you acquire the land, pay some compensation. That's good enough. But they are amending the act, making it much more humane provisions, so that adequate compensation is given, and what is clear, some other alternate pieces of land are given. That should be that I think the act is coming. At present, with this act, possibly not much can be done, but amendment of the act is under consideration.
So, under human rights, we are studying about issues like AIDS, then cloning and genetic engineering. So, I have still not understood why genetic engineering and cloning becomes a human right issue. Still, there are no cases about violation of, we find violation cases of AIDS or children's rights. But I wanted to know about genetic engineering and cloning specifically, sir.
I'm not exactly, I can't say that how genetic engineering, cloning, whether it becomes a human rights issue or not, and what are the latest decisions of the Human Rights Commission. Some cases may have come, I don't know. Personally, I don't think it's a big human rights, but I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer you properly.
This particular issue has been added as the last unit in their MA course as a recent debates in human rights and then cloning and genetic engineering.
As I say, I would also like to educate myself. Many of the things I don't know.
If I can just have the liberty of asking a very brief question. You have literally groomed NHRC in its incipient stages. Now it's a baby which has become almost adolescent. Do you think it's now time for NHRC to reflect back and think of some kind of an internal reform within to fulfill what it could have done a bit more? I could have asked this to Michael also, but I think I'll have the liberty of asking you that question.
Some kind of review of its procedures, review of its composition is called for. Some stock taking perhaps is necessary. It has almost 14 years or over. It has played a very important role, but challenges are more, situation is changing. How to cope with it, whether this act itself, some of the recommendations we made in the Human Rights, Protection of Human Rights Act. I was the secretary, Justice Ahmedi was the chairperson. They did not. We made, for example, of the two members have to be taken with human rights experience. We made one should be a woman. Human Rights Commission with no woman representative, which is a situation now, is unacceptable. At that time, whoever the woman representative earlier were judges, Supreme Court judges. That you may not get a judge as a woman representative. So, woman should be there. Then we personally felt that some of the recommendations should have been accepted. For example, large-scale violation of human rights takes place by the police, paramilitary forces and the army. As per section 19 of the Act, that violation of human rights of the army, human rights commission, NHRC cannot inquire into it. We call for a report and then give our recommendation. And army, as per the criminal procedure code, includes also the paramilitary forces, BSF, CRP, ITBP, SSB, all become part of the army. So we trod a path, we said that Government may have said that armies, at least paramilitary forces should not be regarded as armed forces of the Union. That they have not accepted. So these are of course acts, but apart from that, I personally feel that they should have a committee, review its procedures, review its composition, not internal changes. They must be doing it, but a time for stock taking has come. And some of the points can think of people like Mr. Shiromani and all who have come there with a fresh mind. They can suggest that what kind of changes are called for, because this is an institution which has played an important part and it has a very important role to play in future.
We would wind up this session. Thank you very much, sir, for this very exhaustive presentation that you gave. And we would like to see this more as a beginning, and we would like to remain in touch with you with regard to our queries on human rights, state, judiciary, police, whatever. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Michael joined the Indian Forest Services in 1980. Later, he joined the IAS. In 1982, he belongs to the Kerala cadre of IAS. He was earlier the district collector of Wayanad district in Kerala. He has also been a faculty at Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, which trains the IAS people once they are selected at Mussoorie. He has been with the National Human Rights Commission for last 2.5 years, if I'm correct, yes, as Joint Secretary Training. His interest areas are environmental issues, primarily disaster management. So our audience from Goa will certainly have a lot to ask him. I welcome you and I invite you to give your presentation, sir.
Right. Because of Shankar Sen sir's presentations, my job has become much easier because everything is interlinked. It's inseparable. So sir has covered quite a lot. But I will rush through and then possibly we can open it for more questions. Right. This is our emblem, which says, I think, Sarva Bhavantu Sukhin, which has been also morning quoted. I think happiness to all. The two hands, I would say, the hands represents US as well. So that means you also, individually, we all have to, play a role in protecting the human rights of the human beings. Right. This is the father of the nation. Because we are proud to have a father of nation like Gandhi ji, because he himself was one of the greatest practitioners of human rights. Throughout his life, if you see, I think he was the most concerned about the poorest, the deprived, and whatever which we touch upon human rights, in his life he has been practicing in his ashram or in his own life and all. And we must be all remembering the one particular case in which what he has called as half-clad, I think it is because of the poverty which he saw in Madurai. I think he made himself half-clad. So he says, it has always been a mystery to me how men can feel themselves honored by the humiliation of their fellow beings. This is very famous. I think we can go on his quotations, how much he has lived. And we are also equally proud of Mother Teresa, I think, who made, I think, a contemporary of ours, I think, who made a remarkable impact on the vulnerable, and I think that impact should make some changes in our lives. The commission, when we say the National Human Rights Commission, this commission has been created in 1993. This is a small booklet which has been circulated to all of you, which has got 43 sections. There's a lot of repetitions because State Human Rights Commissions also has been created on the same act. It is with the 43 sections, and it has gone through an amendment in 2006. Some of them, I think Shankar sir was telling about that amendment. Only few amendments has been accepted and which has gone, and some of your questions which has been raised, we'll try to address that. Right. Next, please. Yeah. The commission has been set up on the 12th October 1993. Recently, I think we have crossed 15 years, and we celebrate this as the 15th year as a foundation day. And kindly note, it has got a chairperson who has to be a retired Chief Justice, a judge who can be a sitting as well as a retired from the Supreme Court, a retired or sitting Chief Justice from a High Court, and 2 persons having knowledge and practical experience in human beings, in human rights. So far, we are having only, retired persons, but there is a provision from the Supreme Court as well as the High Court for a sitting member as well. In addition to that, we have got a deemed members. There are 4 deemed members. They are from the other commissions, namely the Women Commission, the Minorities Commission, the Commission for Scheduled Castes, and the Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Right. Something which is distinct from the other commission is by the selections, because these members are selected by a special committee headed by quite a rich, I think, Prime Minister being the chairperson, and Speaker of the House of People, Deputy Chairman, Leader of Opposition in both houses, Parliament, Home. This constitutes something credibility of the selection of the chairperson and members. This is something unique where I think everybody is involved, not only the ruling, including the opposition, so that a credible, the credibility of this institution and the members goes high. Right. There's one, in the entire constitution of Human Rights Commission, there is one principle called Paris Principles. The Paris Principles is something whether you're autonomous or whether you serve as part of the, the government. For example, I think if I remember correct, I think Shankar Sen sir will be, I think Justice Verma sir was appointed, at that point of time when BJP was in power. And I think he was the one person who raised the major issues in the Gujarat riots. So completely independent autonomy is available with the Human Rights Commissions. It's independent, functionally as well as, functionally as well as financially, it's independent, right? It has got a wide mandate. The wide mandate is, powers to inquire into individual complaints. Any complaints which comes from the individual, it can be done. Here I would just only say that complaints is, only about the government officials, which has been, fortunately at that point of time and unfortunately has been prescribed. It is a commission and omission by a civil servant. A commission and a omission by a civil servant, it does not attract the private persons which you have. But in view of lot of powers which has come into the private, possibly that is an area which has to be taken up. Now what, some of you are about the mine scoring, I think question was asked by the gentleman. Now what we are trying to do is, directly we may not be go to the private person, but we are asking that authorities, like for example the mining authority or the pollution control board, to look into that and ask for a report why this sort of complaint. So in case you feel, you can send a complaint, we'll certainly address that issue. Because sometimes we are not able to straight it because we are restricted, but certainly most of the activities are governed or managed or mandated by some other committees by of the government. So we look into that and ask them for the report, etc. Right. Then powers to visit any jail, because it is said a civilization has to be tested how a jail personnel has to be treated. But I think how many of you, I don't know, has gone to the visited the jail? Right, okay. Maybe a lawyer or, right, okay, right. I would say maybe, Dr. Fernandez to take maybe our political science student also with the permission to visit, take your students to the court, to the jail. But I heard that your jail is not overcrowded. It is around 135 capacity with about 125 people only, right? We can visit to any jail or institutions was very important, because otherwise this is one of the closed area where nobody has an access. So Human Rights Commission members or officials can visit the institutions and make our observations, and there is a prescribed pro forma how we should inspect so that things can be changed. With all said and done, there's much to be done in terms of inside the jails, right? We have got the powers of a civil court, we can summon, etc. More than the civil court's summoning powers, etc., the approach of the Human Rights Commission has been join with the state, join with the government, and try to, motivate and do the things further. Like for example, recently, we have identified 28 districts in the 28 states, one district per state, and identify, taken on a criteria where the human rights scenario is not very good, and join with them, interact with them, sensitize them, and carry on with them how we can strengthen the human rights over a long period of time. So it is not mere authoritative or power, how we can jointly achieve the human rights protections. And Authority to recommend interim relief is also there, which has been touched upon, and we, by and large, we have been giving compensations and transfer cases to state. This is the amendment because we have got 18 state human rights commissions as on today in positions. Possibly Goa does not have got, but Maharashtra has got a state human rights commission. But there was intimations from the Goa government that you are trying to link it up with the Maharashtra State Human Rights Commission. Possibly they could come and also, take part. Monitor the implementation of the recommendations which we carry on to do it and all. The two conditions in the petitions are, a petitions cannot be filed after 1 year it has been lapsed. There is a restriction clause. After the incident of 1 year, we cannot, we will not be entertaining the petitions, but maybe that is what the act says, because in the Indian context, possibly because of ignorance, illiteracy, could have been more, but there is no provision for any relaxation. So these two things which we have to remember. One is no private petitions directly. The second one is about after 1 year lapsing, there is no provision for the commission to take cognizance and all. Now, the functions of the commissions, this is what is the most important, job which is given to us and what we do. There are 10 functions which is exclusively given to us. The inquire suo moto or on a petition presented by the victims or persons on their behalf into complaints. Inquire suo moto. Quite a lot of suo moto petitions we take it. For example, any cases which we see like for Kanmahal, etc., we see the suo moto and we take up the cases because, and every day we screen the media, and whatever comes from the media which we feel that there should be, there's some interventions has to happen, then we just take up the cases as a suo moto. These petitions, etc., it can be like what has been said by Shankar Sen sir, like the Supreme Court. You can also send it by a phone call or by email or by a card or by any means, and it is accepted and all, right? Particularly, which has been again repeatedly stressed, is violation of human rights and abetment thereof or negligence. It's a negligence in the sense or dereliction of duties, even by prevention. Suppose like I'm a policeman, I'm turning that side instead of not doing my job, then possibly that is also this what called omission. Sometimes I abet and commit, sometimes I omit, I just ignore it. I was to protect a person, I'm not doing. I was to administer medicine and give medical treatment, but I'm not doing. So this all will amount to human rights violations, right? Intervene in any proceedings involving in any allegation of violation of human rights pending in before courts with the permission. So wherever there is a possibility where we feel there is something which we can enter, we also enter with the permission of the court. I said it about the visit any jail or any institutions under the control of the state government. Of course, the state government is all the jails under the state government, so quite naturally that is what it's meaning. Review the safeguards provided by or under the Constitution or any laws for the time being in force for the protection of human rights and recommend measures for their effective implementations. Like just whatever act or anything is there or any scheme is there, then we try to look into that and see whether it has been violation. The recent past one is that RLEGA scheme. It said able-bodied person alone need to be given 100 days work. Able-bodied persons means a person's maybe a small handicap, but he's able-bodied, he can do a manual work, can be deprived. So we brought out this issue and said, please kindly don't say able-bodied, because the persons who is on the field will interpret in such a way, even a person with a small limitations will be deprived of. Next, please. Review factors including acts of terrorism that inhibits the enjoyment of human rights and recommend appropriate remedial measures. This is a major challenge. In 1993 itself, I think that's terrorism. I think the country has been one which has been facing a lot of problems. So this has been highlighted. The commission also feels that I think it is not that terrorists should not be taken, but you go through the procedure of law, not by eliminations, etc. He's a defiant. So I think he has to be dealt with, but according to the set procedure of law, because state cannot become a terrorist. He's a defiant, so we cannot take that into account. So we have to follow the procedures, right? Study treaties and other international instruments on human rights and make recommendations for their effective implementations. Morning about disappearance, it was asked whether what has happened to. I think we are not yet a signatory. What commission is saying is what another question was asked. But normally what we do, we analyze it and we tell to the government and also repeatedly take it up with the government because it's the government which has to do it and all. Kindly remember the Human Rights Commission is one of the small institutions because it is the prime responsibility is of the state. It is the state which has to protect and promote the human rights of the people. The National Human Rights Commission is for a better protection and promotion. So normal setups, normal minimum standards has to be followed by the state. We are there just to a better protections. That means it's not that only after the Human Rights Commission has come, there is a human rights. No, it has been existing quite a long time. I would even one step say further, there is no necessity of Human Rights Commission provided the executive does their job effectively. Because it addresses only the civil servants. So if the civil servants are able to do their duties promptly, I think there is no necessity for a Human Rights Commission. Since it's not happening, possibly the Human Rights Commission has come into existence. Undertake and promote research in the field of human rights. In this, just I want to share with you, if you see our website, there is a prescribed pro forma also, and some of the researchers, what you feel can be taken up, and there is also a funding available. There are some areas where is not, much research has been done, especially police and, human rights issues, Naxalite problems, why it is occurring. So there are a lot of issues, where is not much has been research has done. Maybe this is the area for the academic institutions to just look into that and how we could also, engage and bring synergy into the process so that for a better protections and promotion of human rights. Spread human rights literacy among various sections of society and promote awareness of the safeguards available for the protection of these rights through publications, the media, seminars, and other available means. Under this class only, I think we are sitting together today and tomorrow. This is what one provisions, how we are creating awareness, because our target has been, by and large, has been the government servants, and above all, the police machinery, because they are the one of the machinery, both for in terms of protection also we need, but violations also, a lot of violations is coming. In Indian context, I think it is a power. It's seldom you see the power is being delegated it and all. I just wanted to take a small example of how powers people cling to the power. The Indian father distributes his asset when? Normally not when he's two-legged. Mostly when he's three-legged or four-legged or when he's flat. Am I right? By and large, the Indian father distributes his assets not when he is very healthy and hearty. He distributes under compulsions or in a situations when he is tilted because he feels clinging to the power or clinging to the assets is most important. That is part of our culture that also reflects in our governance. In any of the government, I think department by and large, I think centralized powers is the most important we feel. Because many of us, when we go to the districts, although we don't say, you please give the application to the policeman. I collect the petition as an SP. I collect the petition as a collector. Why don't I say, because after that I am not going to do, I am just sending it back to the village officer or back to the police station for a report. Why didn't I say, please, give it to the police station, to my village officer, and if he doesn't, accept it, then you complain to me. This is some sort of nature of, my power, I can do many things, etc. So, this is all part of the culture. I would say there's a cultural nature, right? So this is something which we do it for training to the, especially the official machinery, and particularly we are focusing at the grassroots level because the constabulary level, I think, training. Now I think we have got more than around 200 police training institutions all over the country. We try to, when we interact with them, they do say that human rights sessions are covered. We are more strengthening them so that the person at the constabulary level is, more strengthened. When I come into the constabulary level, I was just remembering, I'm from the other end of the country, from Kanyakumari. When we travel from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, I see the lathi goes on increasing in the size. When you travel from Tamil Nadu towards the north, the lathi which is wielding goes on increasing in weight and height. Possibly, I don't know to whom it is. It is not using against the buffalo. Okay. So this is the way I think we have to equip them more with skills, etc. Because quite a lot of responsibility depends upon the seniors. Because that is the only way I would say we can sensitize the people at all level. Not only the police, we are also trying to do it all machinery, all departments, and we say at all the induction level, please incorporate human rights training. and we impart training through the administrative training institutions, then judicial training institutions, like what I think Madam was telling about the newly formed judge, I mean, how she was not very responsible. Possibly we are also trying to sensitize some through the Judicial Training Institute and through universities, colleges, and the credible NGOs. These are all the various bodies through which I think we financially as well as resource we support for, I mean, creating awareness creations. Encourage the efforts of non-government organizations and institutions working in the field of human rights, because NGOs can play a very important role, because media and NGO, they play a very important role in bringing out the issues. Because whenever we go for a discussion mere about the officials, I think this discussion doesn't come, the feeling one gets is everything is perfectly all right. So invariably when there is a media, invariably there is an NGO, issues crop up. So we encourage the NGOs also to, I mean, take part in spreading human rights, because it's part of taking our mandate. The only small restrictions there, what we are doing is just asking them to send the proposals through the district administration, because we are not sure of, we don't have got a mechanism to verify the credibility. So we say, please send your proposals, get recommended by the district administration. So, I mean, wherever you are coming across good NGOs, please do tell them to forward their proposals in case for awareness creations. And undertake such functions as may be considered necessary for the promotion of human rights. Anything which is falling under, we just take it up and all. Yes. This is the organizational structure, the chairperson and members, then the chief executive. Then we have got the law division, which is the division which normally does, the moment the petition comes, it is the law division which examines whether there is a human rights violations involved. If there is a human rights violation involved, then the further steps is taken care of. Then there is administration division and the research division, investigation divisions. Once when there is a need for an investigation, then immediately a decision is taken. And for, I mean, by and large, the recent past, I think we have been trying to send investigating agencies from ours to as much as possible, so that the confidence of the people also is raised, and we also able to know what is exactly happened. We have sent recently to Kandmahal, we are just to Singroor, etc. And wherever it is possible, we do send it. But we do have got a small team, so we use the maximum. But by and large, we depend upon other, I mean, the investigation divisions. Now, I just wanted to bring to your kind knowledge that each of the police headquarters, there is a human rights cell created, and which has been headed by quite a senior police officers. That human rights cell is the link between us and the between us and the state regarding the human rights violation. In Goa also, you do have got a human rights cell. You do not. I mean, they may not have constituted, or they must not have given the responsibility, right? So this has been, I mean, created some 5-6 years back. In all the, I mean, police headquarters, there should be a human rights cell, and it should be with under the head of a very senior officer. Now the commission is only one commission. So there is only, we are only at headquarters at Delhi, and we do have got a staff around 341. I think when Mr. Shankar Sen started, it was, if I remember, around 45, 1993. But currently, I think we are a strength of around 341 people. It's predominantly, of course, as per the requirement or something. It's quite a large number is class 4 and class 3 staff. Yeah. Another special, I mean, because we are not able to reach to every place, so we have created special rapporteurs so that these special rapporteurs act as the eyes and ears of the commission. We have got the regional level also, I mean, special rapporteurs, like for example, for you, Goa, Maharashtra and Gujarat, Mr. R.K. Bhargav, he is the special rapporteur for Goa, Maharashtra and Gujarat. Similarly, we have got for other regions. In addition to that, we do have got also for subject-specific special rapporteurs also. For bonded labor, child labor, women issues, child issues, and economic, social, cultural rights, we do have got a special rapporteur. Currently, I think we have got 10 special rapporteurs in position. You can see it in our website, which is very, I mean, it's available. Regarding the complaint redressal system, we do have got, we have completely computerized the system, and we have got a complaints which can be entertained in any language or received through any mode by post, telegram, fax, email, phone, etc. I think that's one thing. But when it comes in the language, we try to translate it and all. But wherever it is possible, I mean, after this amendment, we can just transfer it to the state commission also, which also we do it, etc. Right? Suo motu registration is also done, which I said it on the basis of the newspaper report which we see, we take it on the suo motu basis from the media. Sometimes matters are also referred from the Supreme Court. Like for example, the visit to the mental hospitals. This was one reference from the Supreme Court that NHRC should look into that. So sometimes we get referred case from the Supreme Court or from the High Court, and then we look into that and we just, no fee is charged. Then your complaint status could be ascertained from the website. This is the website. I think in the note which is given to you, it is www.nhrc.nic.in. That is the website. From there, I think you can always, download. The moment your petition is received, we give you a case number as well as a file number. From that number, you can come into the website and you can just look into that. There is also a facilitation counter. Now, what is the number of complaints we get registered? When we started, it was around, in the 1993, it was around 400 odd cases. But today, I think we have got around 1 lakh cases in 2007-8. We have got a large number of cases. Possibly it reflects two things. One is about the credibility and the faith of the people in the system. So that much of responsibility is also increased. And so far we have received around 8 lakh petitions so far has been acknowledged in the commission, and which we have been redressing recent past. There has been delay. It's not that we have got also a perfect system, because when we receive a petition, we just ask for the report to the state government, and if there is a timely arrival of the report, we are able to dispose it off. If not, there has been a delay. Some interventions, what we did, instead of asking for mere report, writing, etc., the commission itself went to Lucknow with advance informations, with advance intimations, what all is pending, whether compensation is paid. Maybe it has been paid, it is not reported, it is seen as a pending. So we have gone there and then had a commission sitting, including interaction with the senior officials, so that how we can better do it. And that is one initiative which we have taken, and cases are trying to be disposed. Some of the major accomplishments, what we could say, is right to information bill. This is all the bill which has come to us, referred, or we have taken it suo motu and then given our opinions to the place. Domestic Violence Bill, Child Marriage Restraints Act, National Rural Employment Guarantee Bill 2004, Food Safety and Standard Bill, Bill on issues related to trafficking, the Rehabilitation Resettlement Bill 2007, which I think you have raised about that issue, about compensations, etc. We are also addressing the issue of internally displaced people by disasters as well. What we are saying is that I think there should be adequate compensations. We cannot say it's not possible, but there should be adequate compensations. But I think now only the Government of India has come out with a model rehabilitation policy and a resettlement act and bill. Draft bill on refugees. These are all some of the bills, acts in which we have acted. Assisted in drafting of important international conventions and conventions of rights of persons with disabilities. This is one area where we had a special rapporteur who herself is a very, internationally renowned person, and who is heading the visually disabled institution in Dehradun. Assisted government in drafting paper, actively participates in international coordinations, coordination committee and Asia Pacific deliberations and other conferences, seminars, and human rights. Because from the Asia Pacific Forum, the National Human Rights Commission India plays an important role by virtue of its positions, by its of rich experience, etc., and its by reputation. So it's an important spokesperson there. And there is also bilateral and multilateral cooperation with other national human rights institutions. And recently we are thinking of about SAARC countries, as well as from there was India, Brazil, South Africa cooperations, in which also we wanted to take it up the human rights issues there. The complaint management system, which I've been telling, which is comparatively a well-researched complaint management system, which is reasonably good, which has been improved time and again, so that things can be faster. This can be, this has been even taken by abroad, some of the human rights commissions. We are also waiting the websites, because the responsibility of the websites is being also entrusted to the National Human Rights Commission. Now, what some of the priority areas which we have been doing it is like the prison conditions. The prisons is one nobody else is monitoring, so we are one institution which periodically goes, monitors, and trying to improve it, etc. So that to that extent the decongestion can be taken, etc. I think 75% of the people are, under trial cases, in which I think it is the prosecution, the witness, the judiciary, everyone is involved. This is one of the major areas, but it's also a major area of concern which we are taking it up. Custodial deaths, any custodial deaths, I think we are getting a report within the 24 hours, I think immediately, and also a video done of the inquest and postmortem, so that we know, I think things are not this one. Yeah. Hospitals for mentally ill patients, there are 37 mentally ill hospitals which has been periodically visited, because that is another one area of biggest neglect, because people which have been addressed by the social issues, we dump it into the jail. So this is one area which we are addressing, so that mentally ill patients also, whatever is due to them, it's being provided. Status of bonded and child labor situation, this is also periodically monitored, periodically, reviewed, periodically meetings being done. And unfortunately still, I think the country do face the problem of bonded labor and child labor. The homes run by government, by and large, I think the children home, etc., are also visited by the NHRC members, right? The monitors the Visakha guidelines on sexual harassment and workplace. This is one of the recent, this one. Encounter deaths, any encounter deaths, we just address this issue. Deaths of children in protection homes, this is another area of our concern, and we look into that. Any, schemes which is having implications, because most of the development schemes has implications, especially particularly with reference to food, education, health. These are all some of our priority areas. So any schemes coming under implemented or envisaged by the government, then we just look into that, how it is it affecting anyone's human rights. Some thrust areas is food security, because today the food security, though we as a country we are surplus, but in terms of a lot of pockets where there are starvation deaths, there are deprivations, but there is a system right from the beginning, right from Anganwadi till the old age, there are food availability, but we have to ensure whether this food is being made available to them. We just look into that, whether it is made available by field visits, so that, whether the food ensured, under the ICDM scheme, under the civil supply scheme, under the ration scheme, whether it is being made available. Education. Educational institutions are also very important institutions, because this is also where the human rights is being protected and promoted. And many of the educational institutions doesn't got even basic toilet facilities. So this all some of the issues. There is no teachers available. The availability of books is not there. The hostel facility. This all we just look into that, so that as collectively, not as a fault-finding system, but along as a cooperation, we try to address that issue. Then the human rights issues of women, of course, needless to say, this is a priority area where we have to address quite a lot of problems are there. Children, quite a large number of children which ought to be in the school are not in the school. Persons with disabilities, the basic, needs, whether it is, barrier friendly, it is whether it is, disability friendly, because most of the places is not disability friendly. Even our public buses, whether it is disabled friendly, whether the bathrooms, the toilets, public toilets, whether it is, can be used. This all small issues, but it makes a big change in their life, so that we address this issue also. Then the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, their problems, the minorities issues, the senior citizens, and the displaced persons. And trafficking, of course, this is one area which morning also we touched upon. This is one of the major area. And what is generally said, it is due to poverty. People migrate from one state to another state, because there is a lot of clandestine operations. International gangs are also operating. But I think a powerful state, it is not that it is not possible. I can't believe, suppose, let us say, if the collector and the SP in a district decides that in their district there should not be trafficking, I don't think there will be a trafficking. Possibly their lapses or their lacunae or their, attitude makes all this to happen. Custodial justice and environmental issues. These are all some of the issues which it's going to be the future, the great concern for all of us because of the global warming, etc. This is all which we are trying to do it. What we are trying to do it is as much as the compensations, as much as preventive actions to be taken care of. These are all some of the thrust areas which we have identified. And like what I said, the 28 districts where we go, we try to go there and try to address and these issues. Some of the publications and the commissions I just wanted, this annual report, this is the one annual report we prepare the annual report and submit to the Ministry of Home, and Ministry of Home along with the action taken report, it is submitted to the Parliament for the discussion. 2005-2006 Parliament, the report has been presented, which is available in the public domain, which is also a copy is being brought. So this annual report is of the Commission, goes to the Parliament for discussion. Other monthly newsletters, some of the journals are available. Important instructions, guidelines issued by the NHRC is available. State-of-the-art forensic sciences for better criminal justice. This is another area I think we can improve the investigation. So we wanted a better forensic science application technology into this. Professional policing, human rights investigation and interviewing skills, and human rights and custody management. This is one. Including prisons management is one another priority area for the Human Rights Commission. Some of the publications, this guidebook for the media on child sexual abuse, handbook on human rights to judicial officers, and a report on the National Conference on Human Rights and HIV/AIDS. Various recommendations we periodically consult, a wide consultation happens, and we bring out the recommendations, and that also comes as a publications. Quality assurance in the mental health is the priority area. Recently also we had this mental health and detention conference. Information kit on trafficking in women and children is one which is available. Then most of the reports on prevention of atrocities against scheduled caste and disability manual. These are some of the publications which we have brought it. And some of the observations which, I think one of you have been asking about what about the genetic engineering, how much it is going to affect the human rights. Possibly one is not able to what will have the impact of the genetic engineering which we not show, which you are not sure. I don't think Human Rights Commission has received any petitions on this connections. In my limited knowledge, it is no. But any genetic engineering playing, unless it is very time tested and proved, we don't know what sort of mutations will happen. Because gene mutation, because we have to be more worried if there is a gene mutations which cannot be controlled. So that is one of the concern which you are concerned. Then about the, okay. One observation was made, about internal review. Yes, possibly this is the 14 years, I think 15 years we have done. I think every institution needs to be improved, and possibly there is a possibility that there is a scope for always an improvement. Certainly, I think we take cognizance of what you have said it, and there has been some feedback which is coming. We just look into that and all. I think I have possibly made a monologue for a long time. So if anything more you would like to know, because I've just quickly touched here and there of what the National Human Rights Commission has been doing. The state human rights commissions and the National Human Rights Commissions, we are not an organic link body, but then there is some sort of interaction is there, but we are not in any way a supervising or an appellate authority. That is an independent, because in India, everybody wanted to be independent. Nobody wanted to be supervised. So that is possibly one of the reasons. The Central Information Commissioner is independent of the State Information Commissioner. Possibly the National Human Rights Commission is also independent of the State Human Rights Commission. So I stop here, but that in case any questions you would like to pose, then I would try to answer. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
I now leave the floor open. Maybe you can remain seated there,
Okay,
and then
okay,
you can have a panoramic view of the audience. And incidentally, I just received a regret note from our final speaker of the day. Principal Pinheiro is not able to come because of some sudden personal engagements. So we have plenty of time with us. Feel free to ask questions, and you can expect a very frank response from Mr. Michael.
I am a student of Human Rights Certificate course.
Okay, good.
Sir, can you tell me what is the tenure of the commission?
Okay. The commission consists all of them together for the date of appointment 5 years or the years of 70 years.
Is it responsible to the Parliament or the President?
Pardon?
The commission is responsible to whom? To the Parliament or the President?
I mean, it's responsible to, and this question, I think, I don't know if it's understood. I mean, I would say that we report to the parliament, otherwise we are not, yeah. That's good. Yes, I think we report it to the parliament, that annual report, that's all. But then parliament questions all answer. But then you are asking whether we report to president, there is no reporting of anything to the president. Only the annual report does go to the parliament. That's with the action taken report, which is to be done by the Home Ministry. So like that. Yes,
One question that has always dodged me is the state discrimination. In the name, since our post-independence, we have the concept of reservations. It may, rake up issues, but then that's not the point here. What basically I want to ask you is, as an individual of a class, enjoying the status of even the worst and downtrodden, I mean, lying even below the poverty line. Now the state reserving seats for a certain section of a community or a citizenship in the name of reservations, saying that these people are downtrodden, these people have to be uplifted. Now, as an individual belonging to a progressive society, so-called progressive society or a caste, is his rights not violated by the state by discriminating him against the other citizens? And then we harp upon saying that we are equal right to opportunity, I mean, equality as far as right to jobs, right to everything. Has the human rights or the National Human Rights Commission have any role in this? Because I think it's very pertinent, because over a period of time, we've been discriminating people in this so-called name of reservations, and we have people belonging to the other backward classes, or the backward classes, so to say, enjoying status in the government, and they're still enjoying a lot of benefits from the government. So merely because you're born in, so to say, an upper class, does it, the state, can it forbid an individual from getting the benefits as against the others?
The Constitution itself provides that, I mean, category of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes till come to a level, there should be a reservation. But how long that reservations to continue is a question which has to be decided depending upon the evaluations, etc. Right. I mean, in terms of equality of opportunity, but two persons together, if on the same qualifications, then you should not discriminate. But there is a category of people the Constitution itself recognizes and says, because of certain whatever social deprivation so far it has been given. Now your question possibly has to be addressed in this one. In X community, if they are well off, should they also enjoy? That's a question which is a related question, because most of the reservations, if you take it, it has not much benefited the entire group as such. It is from that also a similar smaller groups only has been benefiting. That is one of the issues. But when we say about the job reservations, but about the same similar thing, for example, the other communities which are not categorized, but whether, I mean, they should not also be enjoyed. I mean, now I think I think sometimes now feel once after the reservations, I think once better to be outside the reservation is better, because all reservations come in quite a large numbers. Like for example, Tamil Nadu, I think reservation is more than 70% or so it has come. But I think economic reservation also, economic backwardness also has to be taken into account. It's my personal opinion. But in terms of human rights commissions, we come into, on the reservation issues, there is not anything which we have looked into. But when this category of people, there is a lot of violations, there is a lot of, I think Moni also touched upon the manual scavenging issues. Even today, I think certain category of people belonging to this group as doing that sort of job is what pains the National Human Rights Commission. We address the issue. But still, I mean, unequals cannot be treated equal, that is the principle. But then in the reservation consent, the recent thing, what is happening in the country, for example, every group with pressure or anything wanted to get the reservations. So the so-called economic strong group also is clamoring for reservation, defeats the very purpose of, I mean, providing facility to others. Right? I would put it that way.
We just celebrated World Mental Health Day on the 10th of this month.
Right.
And we had a Western Region conference in Goa. Okay. I was told that there are 2,000 psychiatrists in the country
Only 2,000.
I was told.
Okay.
I have no reason to disbelieve
Okay.
them, but it was quite shocking. In Goa, we have more than 30.
Okay.
Now, we have a mental health authority. You mentioned that the country has around 37 mental hospitals.
Mental hospitals,
Yeah.
yes.
You know the population of India, sir. And given the fact that the percentage of severe mental illness is around 2%, and any mental illness during a lifetime is around 7%, I think 37 hospitals in the country is a very small sum. To which effect, the mental health authority was set up. We also have a mental health authority in Goa. We have one institute of psychiatry in Goa. Somehow in the last several years, the mental health authority of Goa is not able to form its bylaws by which the permission is issued for private hospitalization. 68.5% of the beds world over are in the mental hospital for mentally ill persons. As a result, you have to go there, and it is a non-voluntary admission, which itself is a violation of person's rights.
Right.
Now, are we in a position to you or the state for directions to issue a time period for these bylaws to be set up by the mental health authority so that the private hospitals can start admitting patients?
In terms of mental health, we know the deficiency of psychiatrists and psychiatrists' limitations, which we have also taken cognizance of. And we also say that, as part of the medical course, I think they should be also, given an input so that they could also, address to the basics of the psychiatric needs. Because to tie over the problem, and also to increase the number of, seats for the psychiatry. For psychiatry, this is one part of it. The second one is about, whom you should approach in terms of, creating the bylaws. I would say that possibly, but is it not the government is not responding? It's not responding. Then possibly because it's a government institution, then you can certainly tell that, you can put your petitions to the NHRC that this is what deficiency. So because of this, there has been a problem, people are deprived of. So that I think we could just look into that, and this is also a priority. But that the recent past, the priority, what we have been looking into is like large number of mental patients. I think they can be treated also in the home or the community. Yeah, that's what is the priority rather than putting in the hospitals, etc. Because people conveniently put them in the hospital or in the jail institutions. That has been one of the major problems. And there are institutions, there are situations in which people have been treated well off, but they are not being taken back to home because of whatever social stigma, and they don't want to, take them back because, other situations. So, a lot of complex issues are there, which is a challenging issues, but then all the more for the need of this one, I think you can certainly to the NHRC, you can address a letter, we could just take up these issues.
You said that you make recommendations to the government on various issues, depending upon the cases that come to you. For which I'm sure you have research says also. Now, what I was thinking in terms of recommendations, especially of a preventive nature, because you come to know the complaints of things that have already happened. You therefore are in a position to research and find out how these things happen. You are therefore also in the best position to recommend to the government how these things can be prevented. So a recommendation from you regarding prevention of human rights violations all around the country are a very important role that you play or can play. What we see very often, not about others, are, the rapid action forces and other forces that we are supposed to have are very slow in reacting to major tragedies, whether they are communal riots, whether they are floods or any of these things where a huge amount of human lives are at risk. Your recommendations in this respect of these rapid action forces could perhaps prevent these violations of human rights, of safety of common citizens. Again, whenever we see on TV, or how the TV stations rush to show us all these human tragedies, the total lack of the government authorities of basic first aid. In other countries, when you see calamities, you see the ambulances, the doctors, the stretchers, the equipment that is there and the trained personnel who are treating the people as they are supposed to be treated. Here, whether it is an accident case, whether it is a case of, say, a train accident or whatever it is, you see the pathetic sight of people picking up people and taking them around, therefore causing much more damage by way of health to these people. The government has the maximum amount of government servants from the police everywhere. Why are they not trained in basic first aid, basic cardiopulmonary resuscitation? The police say they do have a course, but any proper course that is conducted is done every second year again. And you see the police, they pick up an accident victim or a drowning victim. Remember, a person who cannot breathe dies within 3 minutes. I mean, if that basic training is not given through schools, through colleges, through the police, through all the government servants, then you are not preventing. It's all right to complain afterwards that human rights have been violated, but prevent them from happening. You would be saving lives. I mean, it's like if I ask this audience here, how many of us have undergone a proper first aid course and a cardiopulmonary resuscitation course by which you can give a victim mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? I don't know how many people would be trained over here. Just let's raise hands and find out. A very, very few people. No, so if somebody stops breathing over here, we would not know. I'm just saying, there's some recommendation that you can possibly make because it's happening all over the country and people are dying as a result of basic first aid not being given. An accident with a spine injury needs to be taken on a stretcher. A broken foot needs to be immobilized. Blood flowing out should be stopped properly. A few recommendations of this nature from your Human Rights Commission would definitely go a long way in having trained people as there are all over the world. Yeah, thank you.
Since you have touched upon disaster management, I would say, let me touch first upon our media. I mean, we have seen the 9/11 or any of the media, I mean, international media, we don't see anything blood or anything. But Indian media, if you see it, repeatedly the same. There's a lot of difference of standard between theirs and ours. I mean, there you see the, Red Cross vehicle or Red Crescent vehicle there, and then they come, respond, etc. You see it and all. Because we are all seeing the same common. But Indian context, the same body, the same blood. It's not that I'm saying you should not say, you should show it, but there is some sort of standard has to be there. That standard is lacking in our country. By projecting this, what that we are bringing it, I don't know. We have to report an accident, but it demoralizes you also, that part. Then coming to the response system, I think we should develop a system of fast response system, which the executive has to, as a part of the professionalism, has to do it, etc. Today, I think most of the institutions, we are not very much prepared to cater to a lot of things, etc. Because since, dealing with that, having associated with the Gujarat earthquake, an earthquake of that nature, if it happens in some of the places, already our government hospitals are so heavy, it's very difficult to take that responsibility. Because you're not in the normal route, everything is congested, your traffic is affected, your system is affected, your lifeline support is cut. So we have to think it of alternative. Coming to the police personnel and the citizens training. Because everything, because in the disaster, everything is critical, crucial. At that point of time, expecting maybe sometimes if you are lucky, I think the constable can give at CPR. Possibly his responsibility is more. Like what you asked the question, how many of us, all are, I think, almost like citizens, adult. How many of us have not undergone that training? Why should I put the responsibility on, because sometimes somebody cracked a joke, government will come and, because of whatever relief, then we can see only the dead bodies. Because if something to happen in this room, let us say if there's an earthquake, God forbid then, we have to take ourselves certain safety measures, where possibly I should go down below, you should try to do that, etc. That has to be trained. That is what in the countries like Japan and all, same earthquake of higher Richter scale happens, but there is no, because of the quality and also the training. Our persons, including our educational system, we have not been trained in terms of survival skills. Like what you said, only 3 minutes is needed for, drowning in a water. But how many constables in Goa who are facing water, I don't know whether they are trained, one, in swimming. Second, swimming is different, rescuing is another. I mean, swimming is one part of it, rescuing is another part of it. It is an additional skill over swimming to how to rescue a person. Otherwise, he will also take him along. That's what is happening, etc. So the training has to be, I mean, I would say, I mean, in the days to come, I think that has to be repeated. I think the Ministry of Home Affairs with the National Disaster Management Authority, with certain central team forces are there. But I would say individually we should have some survival skill, this one. I just wanted to ask, how many of our vehicles, including our private vehicles, have the first aid box? Good, but many others may not be. But when I joined the Red Cross, I said not only in the Red Cross vehicle, it should be displayed also, because many of the people may not carry it. But at least if I say the Red Cross vehicle, there is a, I mean, a first aid box, then I can go and ask for it. Because if it's 2 liters of milk, 2 liters of, I mean, blood gone, then our survival capacity is, well, that's a problem. I do agree regarding this preventive actions, etc. So far, I think we have not been doing it at all, because it's some of the prime responsibility of the respective machinery, respective state, respective government, like that, because we also should know our limit and our roles, etc. But possibly what you have done is, what you have been telling, why not yet preventive actions, recommendations can go. We did had a series of discussions. Now we have prepared an action plan with sitting with all the ministry, touching upon human rights, what all to be done, what not to be done. For example, snake venom has to be kept. All we have listed it out, sitting with health ministry, sitting with other departments, etc. What to be done, what not to be done. That exercise has gone, but it has to percolate down below, and each one of us should be having a survival skill is very important for the overall human rights protections. I appreciate your point of the concern which you raised about the CPR by the constabulary, and I would say that, I mean, I would request our university also to take this consideration. Anybody passing from our college, I think should have, not by theory, by some practical CPR, so that artificial respiration, I think I can give it if somebody is fainting and taking it and all. I would appeal to the university to take this as a part of our associations. Right. Good. I think we should do it. It's a great service we will be doing to the community and to the society. That's right, and all. And periodically review. Because the same question I asked in the Delhi Police Training College when I went, because Delhi had a reputation earlier of, I mean, school bus falling into the river and children drowning. I asked them, how many of you know swimming? I think only, I mean, 1/3 of the people raised their hands, and there is no provision for swimming training. So these sort of limitations are there. I think that's what we lose quite a large number of lives in our floods, etc. I mean, which are all preventable, I would say in disasters there will be zero casualty. There can be structural damage, but I think there should be zero casualty, which is possible provided we all are cautious and do our duties. Right.
So I would like to ask you, how does the NHRC go about with regard to implementation of human rights violation? This is the first one. And the second one is, what are the problems or the limitations which come in the way of NHRC with regard to implementation of human rights cases?
Let us say it's a petition, or maybe we take a suo motu case. The moment we receive a petitions, the law division, which immediately investigate, which looks into that, is it there any human rights violation is there? If there is really a human rights violation, it is taken cognizance, and immediately it is registered as a case, and a file number is given, a case number is given, and put in the computer in the complaint management system. Then also immediately goes to the commission, one of the members, to look into what to be done. Immediately action starts. Then immediately most of the places what we do happen is that we ask for the report from according to the places. Except for army, which I think Shankarsan was telling, there we ask, suppose we see something has happened in the army, in the defense, then we don't ask straight the army, we ask the government of India, defense secretary. In all other places, we respectively, suppose it is the district collector, we ask the district collector, suppose it is the state government, we ask the state government, ask for the reports. So the reports normally we ask within the 30 days time, because normally we give 30 days time. Within the 30 days time, suppose within 30 days it is not coming, then we just send a reminder, etc. There has been some sort of delay because large number of petitions is not automatically generated and asking for reports. So that is one of the limitations which we asked it about. In terms of replies coming, there has been I mean, large number of complaints reports are not coming. Complaints has been done, but we don't know whether complaints has happened. Compensation has been given. It has been given to the sub-inspector. It is not recorded and just send it to us. These sort of reporting problems are there with us. Otherwise, time-bound, reports are also not forthcoming to that extent. If you take it, we have got predominantly more than 60% of the petitions comes from UP, Bihar, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. These are all the places from we get large number of reports. And like what sir was telling, more than 50% or 30 to 40% is more than 50% is about the police personnel, because that is where there are confrontations, etc. And there has been maybe some sort of, reports may not be, sometimes all the reports may not be very frankly coming, etc. There has been delay, etc. But wherever there is a doubt, then we try to send our investigation report. But the team is so small, so we are not able to send to all the places, and we also don't want to expand, because each one of the organizations should do their role. It is not that every time like for example, the judicial activism. The judicial activism can active for some time only, but then otherwise we will be demoralizing the executive. So the executive should be allowed or made to do their work. Otherwise, if that also is being taken by the judiciary, then they will say that now the tendency is you get the report, get an order from the court. This sort of tendency is getting in. So we should have our limitations of Human Rights Commission should also know its limitations, and it should do to that extent, and so that it is also get done and also your effect. In all the places we shouldn't go. So that's what normally a petition goes to a State Human Rights Commission and also to us. Then we see that State Human Rights Commission will take the responsibility. Then we don't take cognizance, and then there is slow result.
What is the stage of development of State Right Commission Goa? As many states have already got.
Right. There are 18 State Human Rights Commissions in the state. The last one was to be constituted was Bihar. That's right. Other than another, like for example, if you take Northeast, there are only two. One is in Assam, one is in Manipur. Now, we do write to the state governments to constitute a State Human Rights Commission, but maybe a state, but the report which we got it is that the Goa would like to associate with Maharashtra State Human Rights Commissions and to look into this also. Maybe this having a jurisdictions, or maybe the member can be, but it has not been tied, not put into action, but this is what the intimations we got it, etc. So it depends upon the state to create, but then in the State Human Rights Commissions, the provision is there is one chairperson and two members, but I don't know whether that much is a need also. Because a small state, it's not that you should create more infrastructure, more institutions, because more institutions mean more problems as well. Right? Okay. So as such, there is no other concrete, but this is what they have indicated, that Goa would like to associate with Maharashtra and have a State Human Rights Commissions. But even without Human Rights Commissions, we are trying to act through the nodal cell. But in the absence of nodal cell, what Madam is telling, that nodal cell is not functioning, then the DGP or the Home Secretary is the persons we immediately, ask for reports, etc. like that.
Regarding the setting up of the commission in Goa, I just want to say that, we have the consumer forums, and the sitting president has to be a ex-retired judge from the High Court. It is very, 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 very unfortunate that in Goa, for the last several years, we are like orphans, because we have no retired judge in Goa who can sit in the...
Yes.
So we are getting somebody from Kerala and somebody from Bangalore and somebody from here and there, with the result that the members who are sitting, we can hardly take any decisions, because every time that somebody is changed and somebody has to come from out. And I was just wondering, as much as I would love to have the Human Rights Commission here, we can do away with the members, but you cannot do away with the chairperson, who again has to be a retired High Court judge.
Exactly, right.
So when we don't have somebody, though everybody is saying we want, nobody wants to consider the actual, and it's a very serious issue.
Yeah,
because this will be worse than High Court judgments it will come, which if you have a commission with someone who cannot just sit down, because you can't just be an activist over there. You have to have both sides heard, and so we don't have a retired High Court judge who can take the,
exactly.
And so it may never be possible for us to ever have a Human Rights Commission. Independent. What I mean is an independent Commission?
You have to have a retired, Chief Justice of the High Court. But sometimes, suppose you prefer from this state, then you would not get it. So it's better to have it, link it up with the neighboring state. That's one possibility. I fully agree. That's right. Thank you.
Just express some ideas I have had, sir. May not be directly pertaining to human rights, but it's a thought. A few days ago, 2-3 days ago, we had Goa Bandh called by a certain faction of the community because some temples were desecrated, and as a reaction, they forced everyone to shut down all the shops. I was not well that day. I was desperately in need of some medication. I took my car and I went around searching for the pharmacy. And I did not realize there was a bandh because I was really unwell and I had not, read the paper or seen the news. And to my great shock, I saw this huge mob of very young boys roaming around with lathis and cricket bats. And so I was amused. And then it suddenly struck me that they can, strike my car. So I came home. I was without medication with high fever. I was thinking, and this is something, always on my mind, is who are those children who roam around the streets waiting for violence to happen? And who is responsible for their actions? We talk about, human-made disasters and riots and terrorism, but we do not question who are the terrorists and how they came into being. My question, sir, is that we talk in terms of human excellence as a fundamental duty. What does the state as such do to encourage this excellence in individuals all over? I'm also on the education board, sir, to finalize the curriculum for something called as an adolescent education. I'm there for the last 2 years. We do nothing. We meet 4 times a year and there's some directions, they come and, whatever suggestions we do, they go back to Delhi and they come back and it's a game. But Assam and Manipur has come with the adolescent education program. Unfortunately, I got the copies and it's all about sex and AIDS and how to prevent AIDS and how to prevent teen pregnancies. And it has got nothing more than just this. I was wondering if we as a nation is going to improve and as a nation together is going to end these kind of things, we have to do something more to develop excellence in our children. Something like thinking, something like decision-making prowesses, rationalization, understanding right from wrong, this herd mentality. I felt very hurt because I've got 2 sons of the same age, sir. Yeah, so it was very painful for me to look at those boys because they looked very nice, and I'm sure because then the next day I came to know that some shops did open and they went and pelted the shutters and they forced them to shut down. Next day, of course, it was said that the bandha was successful and all sorts of things. But is it a possibility that we can enforce value education in schools and not restrict it to only sex education, but more to cognitive and behavioral, and thinking prowesses?
Nowadays bandh, declaration comes all on a sudden, it happens, etc. But I think the state, the police department should take into account, etc. And also they do patrolling. Even if there's a bandh, I think they should do patrolling. That's the minimum. It's expected of a welfare state, etc. Because like herd mentality, few children assemble or few youths assemble can do anything on their thrill, etc. But then some sort of restraint. But today, one of the problem today, what I feel is, I'm frankly speaking, Shankar Sen sir is there, I think I would like to request him to, there is no fear in me that I think even I break the law, anything will happen to me. I can get away with it. That attitude is coming, that is very, the respect for law, it's coming down in the society, in all of us, like that and all. That is one thing which has to be concerned, etc. Possibly that has to be, more at home and then at school and college level, value educations, ethic, this all has to become, but it was partly in our society. I think nobody taught that when you travel in a bus, a lady is standing, an elderly person is standing, you have to, nobody taught, it was in a part of our system. But today, if you Delhi, I think, men strongly, sitting on the women's seat, with not even bothered, even this one, this is becoming a common, it's a I mean, value degradation, I would say. But then I think it's time that I think we should take it up, because Manipur, your problem is a drug is a major issue, because that state is suffering through that. Allowed to, I mean, lack of governance, there are so many issues. But I think state like here, people like you, we are sensitive. Please take it up issues that let the house improve, so that, I mean, gradually. I think we should take it up, maybe in the school level, college. People are willing to come and spend their time on this value education. Possibly, I think we should make a forum, children to maybe 1 hour, etc., etc. I think I would say the parent-teachers associations, wherever, maybe even college, where the system is not working, but at least in the school, this all has to be come into this. I think I always used to crack a joke in Delhi. I think we are taught children only to score marks, nothing more. We are taught them only to score marks. I think they are good at scoring marks, nothing more. And especially Delhi children, if you see, I think that I don't know, others would agree. I think madam seems to be there. I think the value for this one is very less. I mean, they just mark, because finally we say only mark only speaks. So it's not being a human being. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, equally we all have to be concerned about this, because it is today my children, tomorrow your children, any children like that and all. But I think some sort of punishment also should be, some reprimanding should be there, so that. But then what happens, the moment my children is reprimanded, then I immediately ring the SP and say, ye, aapka constable ye kar rahe hain, usko thoda sa. This sort of influences also make, actually we have demoralized the police to function. Or for that matter, I think I know in Goa, I think because decision making level is very involved. So every decision is having repercussions, a lot of discussions, etc. But I think it's time that I think we should address this issue, I mean, more, because finally our future depends upon these children. What type of education, what type of society, what type of human rights values, it has to be catered. I think it is there, we have to nurture in them and all. I think I would request Shankar Sen sir to on this children coming on the roads, bunks and all. Sir, please.
No, the point which you raised is very relevant. Some kind of a value education is the need of the hour. Instead of just learning by rote, which we are doing in schools and colleges, value education is necessary, and there the values imbibed from the family, parents, values imbibed from the teachers, these are of great importance. It is true, as Mr. Michael Ceremony has said, that somehow or other there is a contempt for law or a culture of impunity, that you know you can break the law, get away with it. You know that suppose police intervene, sometimes you can influence the police. If it pends in the court of law, you can see the cases are dragged. Ultimately, nothing happens. If you know political leaders, he will use the influence. So, we have developed a culture of impunity. As a result, people can take law in their own hands and get away with it. I remember the conference which I attended, and they say that when the Indian police will be like the British police, thinking of the rights of the people, trying to help them, when that kind of attitude will come, I say, yes, police should learn that. But when the Indian public will also be as law-abiding as the British public, that's the point. That along with obedience, law-abidingness has to come. This culture has to be cultivated, and each one of us in our own way has to see that certain discipline, certain standards are kept, and institution has a big role to play also. Not only schools, colleges also, where the teachers should set the examples. Some of the senior students should set the example for the junior students. That kind of mental discipline is also the need of the hour. And something has to be done about it. And now turning specifically to the police, I fully agree that there is so many things which have to be improved. And training is inadequate. Discipline is far from being ideal. So a lot of steps are necessary, because police position in a society is what they call not subordinate position but a superordinate position. Yes, he should set the example. He is a law enforcer, how he behaves, that should be the example. In England, they say the law abidingness has come because the British police have set the example by their discipline, by the adherence to rules and norms. So, a lot of steps in various directions are called for, but the point, madam, which you raised is good in a sense that unless and until we inculcate a better sense of discipline, discipline not physical discipline, moral discipline, not much can be done. And that is the need of the hour.
Thank you, sir.
I was tempted to respond because the issue involves education and value education and discipline and students. I accept the fact that teachers have to educate rather than make literates, produce literates. And Nehru, even at the beginning of, the whole project of the Indian government and democracy in India had said that we should educate engineers to build roads and not to destroy houses. Now, we have a serious problem. I am in education for about 15 years. And I have seen that, you can educate people or you can give values to people who are receptible to values. But it is sad to say that it's very, very difficult to pass on values to students. It's a realization from about 15 years of teaching at college level and university level. You can also do a rethink on the education system that we have, but basically students are not amenable to discipline. So we have had cases in the recent past where students have gone to the press when they are on the wrong, when they have submitted fake medical certificates to say that they are sick. They have posted blogs in the public domain. This is done by our students and from our department. There are instances when false allegations have been made against teachers. It's not only that teachers are a good community, that teachers also instigate students against teachers. So I think this ideal situation of the intention is correct and the point is well taken that we need to educate. But the question is, we are living in a society which refuses to be educated. The rights discourse supersedes the duties discourse. So as was pointed out, there are also fundamental duties in the Constitution. But if you look at students as a receptive community, you look at students' council elections, there are colleges and universities where students' councils have been banned because the democratic exercise and participation and exchange of ideas is not taking place. Movements have taken wrong turn. They are very political, they are very malified. This is a very sad to say, but because what happens is that the insiders know what is happening. So being in the commission, both our distinguished speakers would know what are the constraints from the government, from the police, with the state government. So also I said that I thought of expressing this because looking at education also, society would perceive that teachers should educate and maybe that teachers. So which teachers are perceived as good? Those teachers who don't allow the students to think. That means they dictate notes. Those teachers who give good marks are seen as good, irrespective of the fact whether education is taking place or not. Students don't want to be educated. And this is my experience from social sciences. There are students in medical, there are students in engineering, there are students in the competitive disciplines who are studying but they are getting literate. I don't know whether they are getting educated. So, there is a whole problem with the education system as well. So, teacher who comes and teaches only the subject but does not talk about any moral content, a teacher who does not point out certain things which are wrong with the interpersonal relationships in the class is perceived as good. Because we had grown up in the old tradition of respecting teachers, we would not say a thing about a head of department, no matter if he was correct. Today you have marking of the teachers which is challenged openly and without any conscience, without understanding from what point of view you are critiquing, irrespective of the fact that certain people have even been vice chancellors of the university. So I think some credit has to be given. So you cannot treat everybody with suspicion. You cannot think that every marking is a conspiracy against me. So these are the situations. I don't have answers, but we are still grappling. So it makes one pessimistic at the end of the day. If you can't educate students who are in the formative years, how can you educate the police? How can you educate the bureaucracy? How can you educate politicians? Because they have other games. Students are supposed to be in formative years and receptive. Even if you look at the Indian tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara, today you have teachers who are also in the profession because the profession is well paying, but students are also politicized. So I mean, this is just a comment, and it's a very broad comment. It's a comment which comes from experience, practical experience. So I think we have to do a rethink on the values that underlie our society more than anything else. Thank you.
No, actually what he said is all correct, but what I will do, I will quote only 2 instances from my professional career and allow you to draw the conclusions. I will not give any judgments. One was that we organized a seminar, Professor David Bailey had come. Professor David Bailey is a very well-known criminologist, written extensively on police and all. And he has written about the police system in Japan. Then about students' unrest came. So he said, I have seen in Japan that whenever there is a problem, sadly the policeman tells the students are creating problem that you are doing like this, I will report it to your teacher. And that has the desired effect. It has a calming and disciplining effect. But he says in America, the teacher of the university say we'll have to report to the police. Police have to intervene. And similarly in India, anything happens, student indiscipline and all, we have to call the police because the teachers are not able to control the student, discipline the student. He says that ours is a society, ours in America is a history of 200 years, that also a blood-soaked history. He mentioned about Guru Shishya Parampara in India, where 2000 years of ideal relationship between teacher and student. Why this has happened? That's a question, whether students alone are responsible or the teachers are also equally to blame. You draw the conclusion. And this is one part of it. And my own experience, I was at that time the Deputy Inspector General of Police in Rourkela. So there was a regional engineering college. The students one day decided there's a girls' hostel. They would go in the evening, give them Jagannath Prasad or some kind of thing. So police inspector, his daughter was there. Knowing of that, he ran there and asked the students not to enter. The students, what they did, that they had done Prasad, threw it on the face of the inspector, went. The police also retaliated. There was a clash between the students and the police. So I went to the spot. The demand was the policemen have to be suspended. And lo and behold, I said, after all, whether they have to be suspended and all, we have to make an inquiry. Lo and behold, I find and he was a good friend of mine. I used to meet him in the club also. Dr. Mishra is a well-known academic and engineer. He was also demonstrating with the student, raising hands. Yes, the policeman has to be suspended and all this thing. I was a little taken aback, but I said that as an officer, I have to make an inquiry. I cannot do anything. So he left. So this thing, after 5 days, I find that Mrs. Mishra, his wife, rang up my wife and said, you know, there is a disturbance in the college. Students have gheraued our house. Can you post some policemen to help us?
Between teachers and students. I want Michael finally to focus a little bit on the internship program in National Human Rights Commission, which is meant exclusively for students who are doing a PG in political science, law. I have been encouraging my students to do that. I have not been very successful. Maybe once you say, they will definitely get motivated.
Thank you. I think while my presenting, I should have done that. Okay. This is an internship program. We have been doing it for the past 6-7 years. One is in the winter, one is in the summer. The winter internship starts on the 17th of December and ends on 15th of January. The last day for the application is in the website. It is on the, if I remember, 10th of November. So this is any postgraduate students, we are just liberalized. Any postgraduate students in the second years can apply, political science, economics, all that, can apply in the Proforma, and we provide them a 5,000 rupees stipend for this 1 month, and also that second class train fare to and fro. The accommodation they have to take care of themselves. So Goa has been one state which I think we didn't have so far students so far, because my target has been the uncovered states which has been doing it and all. So even the affiliated colleges you could see, ask them to see our website and they could apply it quickly, we will be grateful. Because we wanted to reach certain places, because Goa in terms of human rights, we have not done anything. There is one State Institute of Rural Development, there is a fire service college, am I right? If I understood properly, from the government? SIRD. Okay, good, thank you. It's nice that I went. Okay, SIRD itself can take up some training, maybe for your. Okay, that will be great. Then I think we will encourage it, because when doctor talked to me, I said it, because so far nothing has happened in Goa. So let me try to encourage and try to do that. So we are making a beginning, you are come. Maybe other colleges also, if there are students, please ask them to apply, we will be happy. But I am not very sure at that time whether you have got a vacation, because it depends upon the vacation of yours. You cannot forego your academic and then come over there. It is on 17th of December and 15th of January. Another one thing which we did it last is that the Ram Manohar Lohia Law College in Lucknow, because we are not, after all we are able to select only 50 students in a year, in one session. But 50 students here, there, 1 or 2. So Lucknow, that Ram Manohar Lohia University, Dr. Chauhan is a very interesting person. Then he organized one for the UP students. So he covered 63 students 1 month. But we didn't call them internship program. We call them internship, means you have to attach them with State Human Rights Commission and all. Maybe human rights training can be thought of, since you have got a certificate course. Maybe you can think it of one, maybe at an appropriate time, then we could jointly organize one. That is, separate, I am just suggesting, etc. Please tell other institutions as well as to apply, those who are in the final year students, including law students of the final year or the integrated law courses. I don't know in Goa whether you got integrated law courses. If it is there, 4th and 5th year. Thanks for reminding. That was, I got the, applications also for one copy to you. Thank you very much.